you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. The click of the front door deadbolt was the last sound I wanted to hear, but I heard it at 2:47 a.m. I was 22, living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment above a shuttered corner store in my college town. My roommate had gone home for the weekend. I decided to burn the midnight oil on a final research paper. The apartment was cluttered, open textbooks strewn across the coffee table, half-empty coffee mugs circling my laptop keyboard, a floor lamp illuminating stubborn math formulas on the wall. Around 2:30 a.m, I realised I locked myself out of the study groove. My eyelids drooped, the blinking cursor mocked me. I shut the laptop, I rubbed my temples and padded into the kitchen for more coffee. I filled the electric kettle, flicked the switch, and that's when the house settled. Not the usual creaking from the old floor joists, but a deliberate, metallic shift. A click. I froze. My heart tapped against my ribs. It was the deadbolt on my front door. Probably the wind, I whispered to myself. Although I knew the windows were locked, I crossed the living room to glance at the front door peeking through the frosted window pane. No silhouette, no shifting shadows. I poured coffee, took 2 cautious sips, and then I heard it again. Click, click. The bolt sliding into place. That was impossible. I had locked the door behind me when I came in. No breeze is strong enough to ratchet a deadbolt. I set the mug down so hard it splashed onto the counter. I considered calling the police, but what could I say? Hello, I think my door is locking itself. Before I could decide, the voice came. A single, hushed syllable through the frosted glass. Hello? I whipped around, nearly upending the coffee mug. My chest seized. I wasn't alone. Instinct and panic overrode every rational thought. My backpack, still by the door, it held a pocket knife, but no phone. I charged it downstairs and left it plugged in. I needed cover and concealment. I grabbed the flat-bottomed baking tray from the oven rack, heavy enough to swing. In the closet by the entrance, I yanked the door open. I flung the tray behind me and squeezed inside. My heels sank into slippers. Hangers rattled over my head. I crouched, pressing my back against the far wall. From inside the closet, I peered through the slats, watching the living room lamp through the crack. My breathing was so loud I could hear each intake. I pressed the pocket knife handle into my hand like a talisman. Footsteps, bare, light, exactly on the other side of the closet door. 1 step, pause. 2 steps, pause. 3 steps, closer. The old floorboards were silent except for his steps. In the dead quiet, I could count each floorboard crack. 24, 25, 26. He was inching towards me. He knew I was here. I wanted to scream. I wanted to bolt. But I pictured the door swinging open, the lamp bursting into shards, the attacker's face inches from mine. 27, 28, 29. He stopped. I felt it, the door shifting ever so slightly under his grip. A faint imprint where his fingers curled around the knob. Are you there? The same voice, low, male, calm. My palms stuck to the wooden hangers. I stared at my shoes, willing my pulse to calm. From inside the closet, I whispered back, yes. Seconds stretched. I could hear him tilt his head. Then, to my horror, I heard him unlatch the closet door. He turned the knob. Clicked. My heart stopped. He was opening the door. I curled tighter. I raised the tray like a shield. Click, click. I dared not to breathe. The door creaked open. Not fully, but enough. Light spilled across the floor. Nothing moved, no shadow. I waited, petrified. The the tray trembling in my hands. After an eternity, the footsteps retreated, slow, deliberate, back towards the front door. I heard the deadbolt slide once, twice, then the handle turn. The front door clicked open. "This isn't funny," he muttered. "Move." I heard him descend the stairs. I didn't know we had stairs. My throat raw. I waited until I heard the outside car door slam. Then, a car engine, idling, tires crunching gravel. I stayed until the engine roared away. I heard tires fade. Then, silence. I slipped out of the closet, digging my phone from the charger. 3:09 a.m. I called 911 as quietly as I could. Someone was in my apartment. They left in a black sedan. The operator told me police were en route. I locked every deadbolt. I grabbed the tray and patrolled the house until dawn. The officer arrived at 3:47 a.m. No prints on the doorframe, no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry. The front door lock was slightly loose, as though someone had picked it. The downstairs staircase, non-existent. My closet gave onto the small utility closet. No stairs led anywhere. CCTV footage from the store below showed a black sedan parked outside at 2:45 a.m. A man in a hoodie stood by the door, then moved out of frame. The sedan drove off at 3:02. The hijacker's face was never clear, no plate, just a hoodie and shovel-footed boots. My police report closed after a week. No suspect identified, no forced entry, possibly a lockpick and a quick exit. 3 months later, I still sleep with Bliss Block earplugs and a can of pepper spray on my nightstand. Every floor creak sends me leaping from the bed, breath pounding. Once, at 2:45 a.m, I heard the softest click from the closet door. I grabbed the tray, crept out, found nothing but my reflection in the hallway mirror. I'll never forget those footstep counts. 27, 28, 29, each one echoing in my skull. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it, but some nights I still hear them outside, counting. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. At 1:33 a.m, a voice came whispering through the vent. "I can see you." When I moved into my first place, a modest 3-bedroom bungalow on the edge of a quiet suburban cul-de-sac, I thought I'd found the dream. Rent was reasonable, backyard big enough for a garden, and the previous tenants left most appliances behind. The house was built in 1968 with original hardwood floors, plaster walls, and crucially, no air conditioning vent in the bedroom I claimed. I figured fresh air from the window fan would suffice. Most nights, I locked the doors, set the alarms, and fell asleep to the hum of the refrigerator. The only oddity I noticed early on was a faint draft in my bedroom closet and a low, almost musical echo when I slammed the front door. I ignored these quirks until that night. It was late October, 3 weeks after moving in. I was finishing a shift on my laptop in the living room, lights low. My phone buzzed, a text from Mum, asking if I remembered to lock the back door. I smiled, tapped yes, and closed the messaging app. By midnight, the house was quiet. I upended a throw blanket on the couch and fell asleep to the glow of the street lamp seeping through the curtains. At 1:24 a.m, I woke to a faint tick, 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 like nails tapping metal. I sat up. The sound echoed from the vent above the couch. In that moment, I realised this house did have vents, air ducts that snaked through every room. A second later, the vent grill rattled, then breath, a single inhale, low and deliberate. "I see you." The voice was soft, male, barely audible. I froze, heart pounding, eyes scanning the ceiling. I see you. Again, clearer now, beneath the second floor bedroom vent, 2 floors up. I'd thought it was sealed, but a breeze flickered across my face. Someone was speaking through it. I bolted upright, knocking the blanket to the floor. The tree shadows on the opposite wall seemed to twist. I fumbled for my phone. No signal. I shook off the dozing fog and crept to the staircase. Hello? I whispered up the stairs. No reply. I switched on the hall light. Everything was normal. The second floor hallway ceiling had a vent cover identical to the one above my couch. I noticed it now for the first time, painted over in white, dusty. I tested the grill with my finger. The screws were intact, but the cover rattled under light finger pressure. I backed away. I can see you. It echoed from upstairs, far more urgent. I froze, staring at the vent. The words felt inside me, as if the house itself whispered. I tried calling 911 on my cell. No bars. I bolted downstairs, yanked open the front door, locked tight. I checked the back door, also locked, the deadbolt engaged. Windows were latched, no one outside. Shaking, I backed inside and bolted both doors. My breath came in sharp bursts. I crept back to the living room couch and ducked behind it, phone at the ready. The vent above was silent. After 5 minutes, I thought I heard a clothing zipper, 2 floors up. I'm upstairs. The voice came, slow and deliberate. I screamed at the ceiling, "Get out!" and pounded the floor with my fist. Silence. Then the front door handle rattled downstairs, briefly, like a tap. Adrenaline drove me upstairs. My bedroom closet swung open slightly. I wheeled around. The vent in my bedroom, the one I thought was non-existent, had its cover half pulled away. I yanked it down. Inside, I saw a dark cavity, ductwork swallowed in shadows. I slid my phone flashlight inside. Only fiberglass insulation and twisted metal. There were muddy footprints on the attic stairs, above my closet. But the attic hatch was sealed with no visible ladder. I backed out, heart thudding. I unlocked my bedroom window, planning to escape onto the roof, but the night wind carried. That whisper again. Don't hide. I grabbed a screwdriver, removed the living room vent grill, and shone the light. Beneath was a sculpted silhouette, graffiti scratched into the duct. I was here. Below it, scrawled in what looked like dried blood. Now I see you. My hand trembled. I heard heavy footsteps on the floor below. Footsteps that shouldn't exist when the radio and phone had no signal. At 2:17 AM, everything went silent. Vent, footsteps, heartbeats. The house settled. Only the creaks of an old building. I locked myself into the bathroom. Phone to my ear connected by streaks of signal. 1 bar. I dialed 911 and got through. My vents! Someone's in my walls! Stay on the line. Police are 5 minutes away. I flicked off the bedroom light, huddled in the tub, knife in hand, phone speaker pressed to my ear. Police arrived at 2:46 AM. They swept the house. No one inside. The attic hatch was still sealed from above. No holes in the windows or the walls. No basement. No sign of forced entry. They tested the vent grill. It popped off under pressure, but ductwork was clear. No footprints. No fingerprints. By morning, they dusted the prints, non-matched. They chalked it up to squatters who fled at sirens. No suspect ID. No evidence. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. I moved out the next day, but each month I slip into the house, I still hear my name, whispering through the vents. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. At 3:14 AM, my phone lit up with a motion alert. Bedroom camera. I watched in horror as he climbed into bed beside me and stared right at the camera. I work from home as a copy editor for a small publishing house. My apartment, a 2-bedroom on the second floor of a quiet complex, felt perfectly safe. I installed 3 Wi-Fi cameras after a rash of break-ins in the neighbourhood: front door, living room and bedroom. Most nights I checked the feeds once or twice, then drifted off, comforted by the live stream. On this night, I stayed late finishing an urgent proof of a 300-page manuscript. By 2:30 AM, my eyes burned. I closed the laptop, wiped my cheek and stumbled towards bed. The bedroom door clicked shut behind me. I slid under the duvet, glanced at my camera's red LED blinking on the dresser and shut off the lamp. My phone buzzed on the nightstand at exactly 3:14 AM. Motion detected in bedroom. View live. Heart hammering. I propped myself on one elbow, tapped the notification, and the live feed filled the screen. My camera's night vision IR lit the room in scratchy black and white. I expected to see an empty bed. Instead, I saw him. He was seated on the far edge of the mattress, his back to the camera, head bowed, a thin hoodie drawn over his hair, face hidden in shadow. The way he held his body felt deliberate, too calm for a breaking, like he was waiting. He was seated on the far edge of the mattress. I swallowed hard. My instinct screamed, "Bolt!" But I knew he could see me moving through the camera. I quietly reached for the cell phone speaker to call 911, but at that moment, his head snapped up, and I caught that eerie glint of his eyes in the IR glow. His stare locked on the camera, on me. For a second, he simply sat there, hands in his lap, breathing slowly. Then he slid off the bed, feet bare, and began to stand. With each movement, the camera caught his outline, tall, thin, long arms that swung as he walked. He paused at the foot of the bed, glanced down at the blankets, then raised his hand in a slow, almost casual wave. I couldn't scream. My voice locked in my throat. I fumbled the phone, my finger hovering over the lock screen. He took a step backwards towards the door. As he passed the dresser, he reached out, brushed his fingertips across the wood, a whisper of a smile, then he vanished. I bolted upright in my bed, heart racing. The feed cut to all black, the camera's offline. I flung off the covers, stumbled to the door, locked. My cell phone pinged, reconnecting, not secure. Slippers in hand, I sprinted to the living room panel to see the desktop monitoring app. No cameras. It displayed offline. I dialed 911 from the hallway phone. I'd left my cell upstairs. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's in my apartment. He's got into my bedroom. Can you leave safely? Can you safely leave? No, I don't have my phone or my keys. Stay calm. Are you hiding? Yes. I backed into my closet, yanked the door shut, and held my breath. Within 4 minutes, I heard sirens wailing down the street. Faint at first, then louder. I pressed my ear to the door. No footsteps. Then a loud knock. Police, open up! I rushed out, greeted by 2 officers, flashlights in hand. They swept the living room and the kitchen. No sign of forced entry. All doors and windows locked. No footprints. No overturned furniture. No dropped hoodie. No trace of the intruder. They checked the bedroom. I showed them the closet. They found nothing. No one's been here, the lead officer said, frowning. Did you see him clearly? On camera. I swear I did. Were they recorded? I ran to my laptop. The monitoring app had no recordings from 3:14 AM. It showed no footage. Placed a hand on my arm. Sometimes cameras glitch in sleep mode. We'll patrol the building. Call us if you see him again. They left. I sat on the couch trembling. The timer on my stove ticked to 3:45. I spent the next day reinstalling cameras from backup batteries. That evening, I checked all the memory cards. Half-heartedly, I popped the bedroom cam's 32GB card into my reader. The last file was from 1:02 AM, a test clip I'd recorded. Then, nothing. Disappointed and exhausted, I went to bed again, but I set up a cell phone live stream. Just the phone's camera, aimed at the dresser. I placed it on my laptop to record locally. Then, I slid under the covers, phone in hand. Next morning, I reviewed the live stream footage. My stomach sank. At 3:13 AM, the camera wobbled, footsteps off screen. Seconds later, the intruder padded into view, hoodie up, face still hidden. He moved deliberately towards the dresser and looked directly into the lens. His head tilted, as if studying the camera. Then he raised his hand, fingers tracing a circle in the air. His lips parted in a wordless grin. He didn't exit. Instead, he backed into the darkness at the room's edge. Off screen, the camera shook as it turned the cell phone towards the bedroom door, filming the hallway. Its lights on, motionless. The clip ends at 3:15 AM. That night, I set up a live feed on my TV. Phone camera in the bedroom, backup power. I slept on the sofa downstairs. At 3:14, it pinged. Motion detected. The feed popped up, showing my dark hallway, then the dresser. Empty. I held my breath as the door at the end of the hall creaked. A figure stepped into frame. Hoodie, boots, the same calm guilt. It paused at the bathroom door, glanced towards me on the sofa, then flicked its finger as if testing the lights. I dashed up, flung the door open. The bathroom was empty, mirrors steamed, water droplets on the sink. I turned back and saw him standing in the hallway, inches away. "Stay asleep," he whispered. His breath was cold and he vanished before I could react. The feed cut out. I never slept upstairs again. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. His face, I never saw it, but every night I wake to emotion alert and pray it's just a glitch. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. I always believed the only thing worse than an intruder breaking in was the intruder I could never see. I returned to my childhood home one humid July evening. The sky still stained pink despite the sun dipping behind the row of maples at the end of the drive. I'd been away at university 2 years running, and this was my first real hiatus back under my parents' roof. The house stood placid on Mulberry Lane, its white siding dulled by decades of summer storms. Inside, it smelled of lavender air freshener and that faint must of old carpet, familiar and strangely comforting, like a blanket I'd outgrown but still sought. My parents were abroad for 2 weeks, celebrating their anniversary, and I'd volunteered to house sit. I unpacked in the living room, textbooks, a battered record player, and a box of photographs I carted from my dorm. Nothing felt amiss, until the soft thump above my head, just after midnight. I paused mid-unpack, scooped a photo from the box. Silence. When I set it down, a shuffling noise, like someone dragging a foot against the ceiling. Thinking it was an overactive branch against the roof, I shrugged it off and crawled into my old room. The ceiling looked exactly as I remembered. No hatch, no loft access, just a smooth pane of drywall. Yet, as I drifted into sleep, I wondered how a tree's footstep could sound so distinctly human. I woke early to birds chirping, sunlight falling on the carpet. My mind replayed the previous night's noises. I checked the plans of the house on my phone. No attic. I stared at the ceiling and I felt a shiver as I pictured whatever had wandered up there. I convinced myself it was nothing until the next night. I was in the kitchen, humming to old vinyl records. When the overhead light flickered, I fiddled with the switch. It stayed lit. Above me, directly above the fridge, came a muffled thud, like someone pacing. I opened the fridge door. The humming stopped. When I closed it, a weighty silence pressed down. Then another step, deliberate, heavy, right above me. My heart pounded. I traced the ceiling joist with my eyes, but there was only flat drywall. I tapped it. Sounded solid. Over the next 2 days, dishes I left on the counter shifted. A cereal bowl slid to the edge. A spoon lay across its rim. My laptop, which I always placed neatly on the coffee table, faced the armchair instead of straight on. I chalked it up to me misplacing things, until I found the muddy footprint on the hardwood floor at dawn. Tiny specks of dirt led from the kitchen to the hallway, stopping abruptly at the base of the stairs where I slept. One evening at 2 a.m, the footsteps began, soft, then growing fainter as if someone padded away. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed the narrow stairs to the supposed attic entrance. There was no entrance. The ceiling panel in the upstairs hallway was seamless. I shone the light across the surface. My breath caught when I saw a faint, hand-shaped smudge in the dust coating the ceiling. I retrieved a screwdriver from the drawer and, after long moments of breathless hesitation, pressed its tip into the drywall. The blade sank with surprising ease. Heart in my throat, I pried at the edges. The panel popped loose, revealing a pitch-black crawl space behind the ceiling joist. Unused, unrecorded, impossible. I hesitated. My rational mind screamed to call the police, but what would I say? Officer, there's an attic here that shouldn't exist, and I think someone's living up there. I risked sounded insane. Instead, I peered inside. The tunnel smelled of damp plaster and old wood, air stale as though unopened since the 1950s. I flashed the beam inside. I saw nothing but inches of space and a tangle of wires, yet somewhere beyond the first joist bay, I detected movement. A soft scraping as though nails were being filed. My blood ran cold. I withdrew the panel and lay across the floor, every nerve screaming. I lay awake that night on my old twin bed, hugging the sheet tight, flashlight at the ready. At 3 a.m, the thumping began again, right above my head this time. I scuttled from the bed, placed hand on the ceiling hatch. Each thud reverberated through my palm, then silence. I pressed my ear to the hatch. A wet, breathy hiss pressed back. I bolted from the room, descended the stairs 2 at a time. In the living room, I grabbed my phone. Dead, charger unplugged, heart snaring. I flicked on the lamp. The soft glow revealed the front door's bolt still engaged, but the back door's ajar. No sign of forced entry elsewhere. The grey morning light hinted at muddy footprints near the threshold. I snapped the door shut and wedged a chair under the handle. I called my friend Sarah, voice trembling. She assured me she'll come straight away. As I waited, I researched hidden intruders living within walls or attics, known as wall jokers or cavity squatters. They've been documented in urban neighbourhoods worldwide. A 2017 case in Chicago found a burglar living in a family's home's crawl space for weeks, undetected by security systems, his footprints only showing up as faint scruffs on the concrete floor. The knock on the front door jolted me. Sarah's muffled voice called through the glass. I hurried to open it, flung it wide, and there she stood, eyes wide with alarm. I shoved my bag at her and pointed upstairs. Together, we ascended to the hatch. My hands shook as I raised it again. Behind it lay a narrow passage, half swallowed by darkness. "Call the police," Sarah whispered. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. While we waited, my beam in hand, we edged forward into the crawl space. The air was colder up there, foul with mould. We crawled on elbows until my light caught a pair of legs curled beneath a threadbare blanket. A face looked up, pale, hollow-eyed, shock of black hair matted to the skull. He half smiled. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth. I recoiled. Sarah cursed and backed out, slamming the hatch. We stumbled downstairs. Sirens wailed in the distance. Behind, through the ceiling panel, I heard frantic scratching as the intruder bolted deeper into the attic network. The dispatch operator insisted we stay safe and wait. Moments later, officers flooded the house, tactical gear, rifles drawn. They found him wedged between two joists, covered in cobwebs. He confessed he researched the blueprints online and discovered the DIY tunnel decades ago, then widened it to live rent-free, feeding on a neighbour's power line. He'd explored the home, learned our routines, and planned to remain unnoticed. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. As they escorted him out, I realised the tunnel extended far beyond the one hatch, an entire labyrinth within our walls. The intruder had vanished beyond the beams into darkness I couldn't reach. They say they searched for hours, but found only empty passageways and fresh mud stains leading deeper into the house. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. My own phone betrayed me, sending messages I never wrote from a number that was unmistakably mine. I moved into flat 4B of Langford Court 2 months ago, a tidy one-bedroom apartment nestled above a row of shuttered shops in East London. It was the perfect bolt hole for a late-night bar supervisor, close enough to the tube for a quick commute, yet quiet when I needed to sleep past noon. The building was old but well kept, polished banisters, a brass plaque at the entrance, and a concierge who never seemed to smile. I liked its weight of history, the way each room held a story. On a Tuesday evening in early April, I finished my shift at the Golden Cat pub around midnight. The air was crisp with spring promise, and I walked home under the glow of street lamps, heels clicking against the pavement. I unlocked the door, burdened with fatigue, and collapsed onto the sofa. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I checked the screen without really seeing it. A message from my own number. Dismissing it as a network glitch, I opened it. The text read, "I'm inside." I froze. My flat's deadbolt clicked shut behind me. Every window was locked. I double-checked the peephole. Empty corridor. The message timestamp glowed at 12:13. My shift had only ended 10 minutes earlier. I texted back, "Who is this?" No reply. My pulse thudded in my ears. I stood and flicked on every light, hallway, kitchen, living room. The apartment shimmed with harsh neon. I circled the space, listening for any hint of movement. The soft thud of footsteps, the creak of floorboards. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. Same number, same sender. "Don't look for me." A low laugh rattled through my chest. I tried to delete the number, but the delete button was greyed out. It was as if the number were welded to my contacts. I paced towards the kitchen, phone in hand. I set it on the counter and opened the fridge to pour myself water. As I did, the screen lit up with another text. I yanked the phone back. The message read, "Water tastes better when shared." My heart sank. I backed away, but a sliver of logic told me to secure the door again. I jiggled the handle, still locked. No sign of forced entry. I tried calling my best friend, Martin. It went straight to voicemail. I left a trembling message. Someone's got in. My own phone's messaging me. Call me. I waited, but no call back. I sank into the armchair, fumbling for a blanket, desperate for comfort. My phone buzzed. Come to the kitchen. The text arrived 2 seconds ago, yet the phone had never left my hand. My thumb stilled above the touchscreen. The message glowed ominously. Slowly, I rose and headed down the short hallway, the blanket dragging behind me like a shroud. In the kitchen, the sink was empty, but the countertop held a single iced tea glass I never brought. A thin mist rose from it, spiraling like spectral smoke. A chill crept up my spine. I swallowed hard. My rational mind searched for an explanation, a forgotten delivery, a prank. But who could prank me from inside my own device? I used the kettle just minutes ago. Steam still curled from its sprout. I turned back towards the living room and my phone vibrated again. I see you. Panic cracked my voice. Show yourself, I whispered. No answer. I flicked off the kitchen light and plunged the room into darkness. I needed to escape this flat, to get help, but my legs refused to move. My phone chimed, this time an MMS, a photo. I unlocked the screen with trembling fingers. The image showed me as I sat on the armchair moments ago, head sagged, blanket around my shoulders. The angle was impossible. The camera must have been miles from me, looking in. I flicked to the next image. The corridor outside my bedroom door, empty. Then another, the peephole view. Someone's silhouette standing just beyond the peephole, peering in. I dropped the phone. It clattered against the tiles. I lunged for the kitchen drawer, pulled out a small knife. Every instinct screamed, get out now. I pressed my back against the living room wall, breathing shallow, blade raised. My eyes darted towards the front door, still locked. I tried the intercom. The concierge light blinked, but no response. The building was ghost quiet. No cars on the street, no footsteps in the corridor. The locked window stared back at me. Another buzz. I stared at the screen. Stop hiding. In desperation, I searched online when I could, between texts, for phone spoofing from own number. Reports from cybersecurity forums revealed a chilling possibility. Advanced malware can hijack a phone's messaging system, spoofing its own number and even interfacing with smart lock APIs. In other cases, attackers who gain root access can manipulate system-level permissions, sending messages as the user and disabling deletion functions. It seemed unthinkable that someone could infiltrate not just my home, but my own device. I backed towards the hallway, knife raised, as the floorboard creaked behind me. I spun. Nothing. Yet my phone buzzed again. Turn around. I obeyed, heart hammering. A figure stood in the doorway of my bedroom, tall, featureless in the darkness, face obscured by a hood. I charged, brandishing the knife, but my foot caught the rug. I stumbled. The figure advanced without sound. I slashed, but struck only air. The intruder grabbed my wrist, twisting. Pain shot up my arm. I kicked out. I heard a wet crack as my heel connected with bone. The figure staggered backwards, enough for me to wrench free. I sprinted to the living room, slammed against the front door, locked. The hooded shape blocked the peephole. I lunged for the intercom. My other hand tightened around the knife. Security! I screamed. Call the police! Silence. Then my phone chimed, still on the counter. I turned to retrieve it. The figure slipped past me like smoke, gliding into the kitchen. I lunged, but it was gone. The flat was empty. I grabbed my phone, a new text. Goodbye. And beneath it, an attachment, a video file. With trembling thumb, I tapped it. I watched myself asleep in bed, blanket pulled up, eyelids fluttering. Then the camera panned to the door, my bedroom door, opening slowly. Footsteps, a silhouette leaned over the bed, and the screen cut to black. When the police finally broke in, after my roommate, concerned by my missed calls, summoned them, there was no sign of her intruder, no footprints on the tiles, no window forced. The knife lay on the floor, dried red smear across the handle. My phone lay on the counter, factory reset, all messages erased. They found no CCTV footage from the corridor. The concierge camera had been disabled. I moved out the next day, leaving everything behind. But sometimes, in quiet moments, my phone buzzes with a notification, a blank line from my own number. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. I heard voices in the nursery, soft, intimate whispers as if two strangers were discussing my daughter's name. I'd been a single father for just over a year when I finally felt like I settled into a routine. Our flat was a converted Victorian townhouse on a quiet street in Manchester, 2 floors of pastel walls and wooden floors that creaked pleasantly under the weight of memories. Every evening, after my daughter Lily, 6 months old with a mop of dark curls, had her bath, I'd settle her into the rocking chair in her nursery. The white noise baby monitor sat on the windowsill, its green light pulsing with the hum of my daughter's breath. On the night in question, I treated myself to a rare dinner out, a curry with an old friend. I'd kiss Lily goodnight at 8, listen to her soft gurgles through the monitor as I left the house, and double-check the front door lock before turning off the landing light. The world felt orderly. My daughter slept, the flat was secure. I had an hour of freedom. I returned home at 10:30. The street lamps threw long shadows through the front window as I unlocked the door. Inside, the flat smelled of sandalwood, my favourite incense. I made my way to the nursery, pausing at the doorway to glance at Lily's crib. She lay swaddled, her tiny chest rising and falling. The baby monitor sat beside her on the windowsill, its speaker silent. I flicked on the nursery light, but noticed nothing unusual. Mobile toys above the crib, a small bookshelf mounting a single row of board books, and the plush grey rug where Lily sometimes practiced tummy time. I sat my keys down and reached for the monitor. As I lifted it, I froze. The speaker was crackling with voices. 2 people were speaking, low and calm, discussing. What exactly? I held the monitor close and squeezed the power button. Nothing. The voices continued as though the device refused to die. My heart hammered as I crept closer, pressing the monitor speaker against my ear. The voices were hushed, gentle, male and female, exchanging greetings I didn't recognize. "She's lovely," the woman said softly. "Yes," the man replied. "Easiest entry we've had." My skin crawled. Who are you?" I murmured, but my own voice sounded alien. The voices didn't falter. I slammed the nursery door shut, clutching the monitor like a lifeline. Back in the hallway, I shook, palms slick with sweat. I pressed the monitor's power switch again. Click, and silence. Relief washed over me. I leaned against the wall, breathing shallow. 5 minutes later, I heard it. The monitor's light blinking back to life. The voices returned, as if defying the power switch. I raced back in, yanked open the door. Nothing. Lily's crib was empty of sound, but still. The voices whispered on, but I dropped the monitor in shock, and it clattered to the floor, skidding under the bookshelf. I crouched to retrieve it. The voices ended. A hiss of static, then a single phrase in a voice whisper soft and intimate. "He'll never know." I staggered back, dread knotting my stomach. The air in the flat felt suddenly denser, every shadow a threat. I glanced at the locked front door. then at the nursery window, latched, with heavy drapes drawn, trapped. 10:39 p.m, I called my neighbour, Helen, who lived 2 floors below. She answered groggily. I whispered my predicament. She promised to check our landing CCTV in the morning. I didn't have CCTV. My phone's camera was shot after Lily hurled a carrot at it, but I needed proof. 10:47 p.m, I stood outside the nursery door, hand hovering near my phone, considering calling 999. But what would I say? Someone spoke through the baby monitor. I pictured the operator's confusion. Instead, I texted my sister. Something's wrong. If I don't reply in 10 minutes, call the police. 10:52 p.m. Silence. Then, through the monitor, a child's laugh. Too clear, too bright, and Lily was asleep. I bolted the nursery door, locked it, and wedged a dresser in front. 10:57 p.m. The flat grew unnaturally cold. My breath misted in the corridor. I wrapped my jacket around me and crept downstairs to fetch a kitchen knife. The voices on the monitor flickered between cooing and conspiratorial threat disguised as tenderness. I heard footsteps above me, soft, skittering across ceiling beams. I peered upwards. The nursery ceiling was solid. The whispering persisted. It felt achingly intimate, as though the voices knew Lily's every habit. I texted 999, hands trembling. Home invasion, audio only, in my nursery, send help. Seconds later, no response. My phone lay useless in my hand. I bolted across the flat to the front door, locked, no key duplication, a trap. I returned to the nursery, knife in hand, and cracked the door open a sliver. The monitor lay on the floor, face down. I stepped inside. The air smelled of baby shampoo and something metallic, like blood. My breath caught. On the rug, a small stain, tiny, dark red. I knelt. There, a single drop of blood, nearly dry. Lily's crib rail had what looked like a smear of red. My mind reeled. She was uninjured. I'd seen her sleeping peacefully. The smear was too deliberate. A message? In overlaying my fear with research, I learned that audio-only baby monitors lack basic encryption, making them vulnerable to remote hacking. In 2019, a Pennsylvania family discovered strangers transmitting through their monitor speaker the sound of adult voices and music. Then in 2022, reports emerged of devices broadcasting intimate conversations and even purposeful instructions to children. Hackers had exploited these vulnerabilities to frighten or coerce parents, often bypassing Wi-Fi passwords through poorly secured device firmware. I paced the nursery floor, knife clenched in white-knuckle grip. The monitor's green light flickered on its own. The voices resumed, synchronized, as though a script. He's right there. I spun. My reflection in the nursery window showed me hunched, knife raised, and behind me, did I see movement? I took a step backwards. The reflection didn't match. My head was turned little, with a silhouette behind it. A tall figure, hunched over the crib, moved with preternatural smoothness. I lunged to grab my daughter's crib rail. The room spun. The shadow in the window reflected its own movement rather than mine. I leaned in closer. I screamed, blades slicing air. The monitor fell, screen shattered, and the voices cut off with crackling snap. Silence. I collapsed to my knees and scooped Lily into my arms. She cried once, a sharp sound of alarm that echoed into the empty room. I hushed her, rocking violently until her sobs quiet. I stood, dripping sweat, and backed out of the nursery. At the threshold, I saw it, on the window sill where the monitor had been. 2 tiny footprints, muddy, too big to be Lily's or mine. They trailed off through the curtains, into the dark beyond the glass. I hurled the knife at the window. Glass exploded inwards. The curtains snagged on shard blades, ripping free. The muddy footprints ended at the still. Outside was the quiet street. No stairs, no fire escape, nothing to explain how someone with muddy boots left prints in that lofty room. I gathered Lily and fled into the night, never to return. The baby monitor remains in my car trunk, a trophy of terror. Sometimes, late at night, I hear it power on through the closed door, and I remember those whispers, promises made to my sleeping child. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. I thought the TV cabinet was empty until a tiny unblinking red dot began to follow my every move in the dark. I'd taken the short-term rental in Brighton's Lane district for 2 nights of research. The building was a narrow Edwardian townhouse, painted pale blue, wedged between a vintage bookshop and a boutique tea room. Inside, wooden floorboards curved under the weight of history, and the decor was a kind of curated nostalgia. Brass candlesticks, velvet top stools, a well-worn Chesterfield sofa. I'd chosen it for its ambience, perfect for writing my feature on British hauntings. The host had assured me the place was fully renovated and tech-friendly, with high-speed Wi-Fi and a smart TV. On my first evening, I unpacked my notebooks and lit a beeswax candle on the mantel. The flat's living room was lined with shelves of dusty paperbacks, and a Persian rug softened the echo of my footsteps. I brewed a pot of Earl Grey and sat into the Chesterfield, poised to draft the opening paragraphs of my article. The smart TV stood across the room, silent, its screen reflecting the candlelight. I clicked on a documentary about Brighton's ghost tours and settled in. Midway through the credits, the TV powered off. Surprised, I rose and pressed the power button on the remote. Nothing. I tapped the screen. It flickered on, showed the home menu, then shut off again. I crouched before the cabinet, peering through its lattice-work doors. Nothing. No wires, no lenses, no sign of life. I shrugged. I chalked it up to a glitch and returned to my candlelit writing. That night, I slept deeply. The city's distant hum lulled me. At dawn, the harbour's gulls called me awake. I opened the curtains and saw the flat's narrow staircase leading upwards, unused, mysterious. I made tea, packed my bag for the day's interviews, and left, feeling only the mild curiosity that such old houses evoke. By the second night, the unusual felt normal. I returned by 9 p.m, tired from walking the seafront for hours, and made myself supper in the gallery kitchen. The flat smelled of aged pine and tea, a scent I almost found calming. I reheated yesterday's soup and ate at the small dining table beneath a brass chandelier. Later, I curled up on the sofa with my laptop, working by the glow of the candle and the fireplace embers. At 1 a.m, I shut the laptop and stretched. The room felt colder now. Howling wind rattled the sash windows. As I stood, the TV clicked on without command. The screen stayed black but for a single red dot blinking in the upper corner of the glass cabinet. I frowned. No menu, no images, just a dot. I pressed the remote. The dot vanished. I moved closer, noticing it reappeared on the TV stand itself, then on the wall behind the bookshelf. It scurried, ever present. My pulse quickened. I swept my gaze across the room. The cabinet's lattice, the TV's dark screen, the shelves. Still the dot appeared, as if tracking my gaze. I turned on every lamp. The living room burst into light. Antique sconces, the chandelier, a floor lamp. The red dot remained, unwavering on the cabinet's door's lattice. It blinked in time with my heart. I approached, pressed my cheek to the wood. There, a barely perceptible pinhole disguised beneath paint. A dot, a camera lens, half concealed, focused on me. I jerked back, heart hammering. Whoever planted it had studied the room, chosen that precise angle. I rifled through the cabinet's contents. No camera body, no device, just books and porcelain figurines. The lenses connected to nothing visible. How could it transmit? I fled the flat's living room and dashed to the narrow hallway, phone in hand. My fingers trembled as I dialed the host's number. It rang twice, then voicemail. I left a message. Found camera in living room. Call me immediately. I waited in the kitchen, knife in hand. How else to defend myself? No reply came. I crept back to the living room door. The red dot reappeared on the glass cabinet, then moved to the TV's bronze frame. It felt alive, sentient. I edged in, heart in my throat. I reached out to try to pry the panel from the cabinet, but the wood held firm. I needed proof, a way to trace the feed. I returned to the kitchen and grabbed my laptop. I opened the Wi-Fi scanner, scanning for unknown devices. Nothing. No IP cameras, no routers aside from the flat's network, yet the cameras transmitted. I stared at the scanner's results, the rental's router, and no other devices. The lens must be wired internally, perhaps linking into the building's shared broadband. I pocketed the knife and returned to the cabinet. Using the silver blade, I gently traced the lettuce lines, searching seams. The wood scraped. Behind one vertical slat, a narrow seam. Prying it revealed a hollow space. I pressed my phone's flashlight inside and saw an SD card slot and two tiny LEDs, one blinking faintly. I extracted the card and the SD reader, my heart pounding. The lens remained in place, glued to the lattice. I crushed the card under my heel. The LEDs winked out, the red dot flickered once and vanished. Silence returned. The flat seemed empty, devoid of menace. I sat on the sofa, breathing shallow, listening to the wind. I spent an hour researching on my phone, switching the kettle on and off to starve off panic. Hotels and rentals have a history of hidden surveillance. Cameras in alarm clocks, USB chargers, even smoke detectors. But this one was something new. A camera wired invisibly behind a wooden cabinet, transmitting over a router I couldn't detect. I shivered as a thought crawled into my mind. What had it recorded already? I checked every room. The slender staircase led to a locked attic hatch I could barely reach. I tried it. It wouldn't budge. The bedroom had an old floral wallpaper and an antique washstand. Nothing unusual. The bathroom was tiled in green and white, fixtures polished. No camera lenses glinted in the mirror's corners. Every inch of the flat I searched. I found nothing, yet I knew I was watched. I returned to the sofa, pressed my palms to my eyes, and forced myself to breathe. I considered leaving immediately, calling the police and the platform, but I needed evidence. Without it, I'd be a madwoman claiming hidden cameras. And what if they returned while I checked out? I set the SD reader on the mantle, resolved to download the footage. I booted my laptop and inserted the reader. A single file appeared, an MP4. I clicked play. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Me, sitting on the Chesterfield at 11 PM, my journal open, candle flickering. The next clip showed me asleep on the sofa at 1 AM, head lolling, blanket over my lap. I frowned. I'd woken, turned off the TV, then gone straight to bed. How did it capture that? It recorded through the lattice? The lens was angled perfectly. I scrolled to the final clip, timestamp 2:11 AM. The camera captured a dark shape moving behind me, an indistinct figure shifting from the kitchen into the hallway. I sat bolt upright, heart hammering. The figure paused just at the edge of the frame, then vanished. My breath caught. I rewound, watched it twice. It was real. My heart buzzed. A message from the host. You found it. You'll see more when I'm ready. My blood ran cold. The host knew. Someone in this house had watched me all night and was now taunting me. I looked around the living room. Every shadow seemed to shudder. The wind rattled the window. The lens hole glowed faintly in the dark. I grabbed the laptop and the SD card, fled through the hall into the kitchen. I yanked open the back door, framed by a narrow fire escape leading down to the alley. The night air hit me like ice. I sprinted down the metal stairs, clutching the laptop, and dashed into the empty street. My breath formed white clouds. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, where a taxi idled. I jumped in, telling the driver, "Please go, now!" At the police station, I handed over the card and described the footage. Officers filed a report but warned me such invasions rarely lead to arrest. Hosts cover their tracks, cards are scrubbed, networks untraceable. I checked out of the rental that morning, leaving my suitcase by the curb. The flat's door was locked behind me, with a small piece of wooden lattice lay in the palm, a splinter from the hidden lens hole. I'll never return to that house. Yet late at night, when I close my eyes, I see the red dot blinking in the darkness, watching through that tiny hole. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. We heard our daughter giggling, then a man's voice whispering her name. We hadn't even moved in with her yet. The moment we stepped barefoot onto the pale oak floors of our new house, my husband, Dan, and I felt a thrill. The house was ours, freshly painted, 5 bedrooms, a nursery already fitted with pastel wallpaper and a brand new crib. We were eager to bring our newborn daughter, Emily, home from the hospital and start our new life as a family. We spent that first evening settling in. Dan mounted floating shelves in the nursery. I tested the baby monitor app on my phone. Everything glowed with promise. The app interface was sleek. Live video in daylight, audio at night, motion alert straight to my wrist. I tapped the test button. A soft click, a breath of static. "Hello?" I said into the nursery. "Is this working?" Silence. Perfect. Until later, at exactly 2:02 a.m, when the tranquility cracked like a dropped teacup. We brought the 5-bedroom colonial in a sleepy Massachusetts suburb from the Wilson family, retiring empty nesters eager to downsize. They left behind Emily's nursery, duck-egg blue walls, white wainscoting, a mobile wooden star spinning lazily over the crib. The listing improvised, move-in ready. All we needed was to bring our daughter home. The closing was seamless. We took possession on a Friday, hired a cleaning crew by Monday, and planned the nursery install on Tuesday, just 3 days before my maternity leave ended. Dan worked from home that week, setting up our office in the former den, while I sorted cloth diapers and stuffed animals. That final Thursday night at 9 p.m, we unpacked Emily's things. We plugged a monitor into the outlet by the crib. The app registered, nursery camera, online. A green light blinked on the monitor unit, casting a gentle circle of illumination. I tested every feature. Live video, crisp. Audio, clear. Motion alerts, on. Satisfied, I slipped the phone into my pocket, kissed Dan goodnight, and retreated to our bedroom, just down the hall. Tomorrow, we'll bring Emily home. It felt like the miracle had already begun. At 2:02 a.m, my phone buzzed. A motion alert from the nursery. I sat bolt upright, heart racing. Was Emily awake already? She'd only been out the womb for 2 days. Surely not. I unlocked the phone, opened the app. The video feed triggered, and I peered at the crib. It was empty. "Emily?" I whispered. No answer. The app's audio meter bounced slightly, indicating a sound. I tilted my phone to record. First, a soft giggle, tiny, high-pitched, like a toddler delighted by a game. Then, overlaid, a low, rasping whisper. "Emily, wake up." The voice was deep, the vowel drawn out, distorted as though it was rooted for a cheap voice changer. The laughter repeated, then the whisper. "Emily, wake up." I clicked to record the audio. The meter spiked. Then, silence. The app's video froze for 2 seconds before resuming, still showing an empty nursery. I stumbled into the nursery at 6:30, bleary-eyed, to see if Emily's monitor was on the wrong channel. The previous owners had confessed their router password stored on a post-it behind the smoke detector. Maybe the monitor app had inadvertently linked to another device on the same network, an old camera left in a closet, or a neighbour's baby monitor spectrum bled through. I scrolled the app's linked devices list, only the nursery unit, no other cameras, no old accounts. I texted Dan. Baby monitor acted weird last night, giggling, whispering, might be router bleed. Check network when you get up. He replied, on it, but if it happened again, let's not ignore. He found the Wilson's old router entry still stored on his laptop. No secondary SSID, no hidden network. He removed that entry, changed our Wi-Fi credentials, rebooted the monitor. I tested the feed streams, then deleted all history. We fixed it, or so we thought. At 2:02 AM, exactly 24 hours later, my phone buzzed. Same motion alert, same timestamp. I shot upright, dread pooling in my stomach. I opened the app, my finger hovered over the video feed, praying for silence. Tap. The mattress squeaked as though someone sat on the edge of an unseen chair. The little gouge on the app shot to red. 002. Then laughter, louder, more excited this time. It sounded like a child's giggle tracked over a delay. Ha 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 ha. Followed by a whisper, Emily. This time it said more. Emily, wake up. Come play. My chest constricted. I switched on the light and jiggled the monitor cord. The night vision camera revealed a perfect scene. Empty crib, shifting mobile, dust motes floating. But that sound. I grabbed the phone. I raced down the hall. I flung open the nursery door. Empty. The monitor lay on the shelf, cord snug. No evidence of tampering, no footprints, not even a mark on the upholstery. I paced, tears stinging. Could I have imagined it? Sleep deprivation, postnatal anxiety? Then on the floor, beneath the crib, a footprint in the dust. A single, small, barefoot print. I dropped to my knees and studied it. It was slender, childlike, about 5 inches long. I'd swept this floor a dozen times. The dust was a fine layer that would show footprints clearly. I snapped pictures, sent them to a local parenting group message thread, and practically threw myself back into bed. By morning, I resolved we would find the rational explanation. Armed with a new router password and a fresh monitor installed, Dan and I dug through public records. We discovered that in 1987, a toddler named Emily Bradford lived in this house. My daughter's name. The Bradford case had made headlines. Emily, age 2, vanished from her bedroom late one night. Her parents awoke to an empty crib and mobile swinging. No ransom note. Search parties combed the area. The police found muddy footprints leading away, then lost the trail. Emily Bradford was never found. The case went cold. The local paper had published the Bradford nursery photos. Pink walls, same style of mobile. Not identical, but the same twirling stars design. The Bradford parents moved away. The house changed hands 3 times. No one ever remodeled the nursery. just plastered over with fresh paint when each occupant arrived. I felt the blood drain from my face. My own Emily was due at that crib by week's end. That night, we did not reinstall the monitor in the Bradford nursery. We moved it to Dan's office, logged out of the app, and vowed not to listen again. We placed a portable baby sound machine by the crib, a simple white noise unit with no network access. At 2:02 a.m, Dan's phone vibrated. Motion alert. Office camera. Confusion and dread. We had no camera in the office. We opened the app. It switched to nursery camera online. The image was tiny, black and white, grainy. Even more terrifying, the audio meter jumped. We held our breath, though the static came. Soft giggle. Wake up, Emily Bradford. The voice was the same deep whisper, modulated low, older. Then it said, "Come find me." A second later, the app froze. We stared at the spinning circle. The timestamp blinked 2:03 a.m. The silent video resumed. A perfect shot of the empty nursery with white noise machine humming at the crib's side. We shredded every Wi-Fi credential that morning. We uninstalled the app, tossed the monitor. Then we called in a local security firm to scan for rogue cameras, hidden pinholes in vents, baby cam lenses behind light switches. They swept the walls, found no electronics, but in a supply closet they discovered an old white noise machine, unplugged, dusty, hidden beneath boxes. Its label read, Bradford Nursery, 1987. We'd never seen it. It must have fallen behind the shelf decades ago. A life-size vent cover was replaced. Inside, layers of insulation. No hidden cavity, no speaker, no recorder. Yet the whispers continued, even without any network device. I began to suspect it wasn't technology at all, but something else. Something worse. We planned to stay elsewhere, slept at my parents' house across town. But Dan had a midnight call with his publishing client. He insisted we face this head on. I agreed. We positioned a portable digital recorder in the nursery, an unhackable standalone unit, switched it on, placed it on the dresser facing the crib. At 2:02 a.m, I held Dan's hand as we crept downstairs, listening at the stairwell. The nursery door was ajar, light spilling softly from the white noise machine. We heard no laughter, no whisper. Then from the recorder, crystal clear, "Emily, come play." I spun towards the door. It slammed shut with a thud. We bolted upstairs. The nursery was empty, crib, wallpaper, and an old white noise machine. And on the shelf, curled in dust, lay an audio cassette tape labelled in faded ink. Emily Bradford, Last Lullaby, 10th of the 12th, 1987. Shaking, Dan pressed play on the cassette recorder. At first, just static, then a tiny voice, laughing, gurgling, unmistakably a toddler's, then a deeper breath, then a man's voice, the same whisper, "Emily, wake up." The same wavering, elongated vowel, then, "She's back." The tape hissed and ended with a single blood-curdling wail that shook the nursery's very walls. We fled at dawn, leaving the nursery intact, the tape and the white noise machine we donated to the local historical society's Bradford Cold Case exhibit. Friends, paranormal investigators, true crime podcasters have studied it. When played, the whisper always pauses exactly at 2:02 a.m. The laughter looped, laugh, wake up, laugh, then the final whisper, "She's back." We never stayed another night, yet every now and then I check local real estate listings. That colonial still stands, pinkish blue nursery under fresh, move-in ready gloss. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it, but sometimes I replay that tape, and I swear I hear Emily's giggle and a whisper telling me someone else is waiting. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. I found the surveyor's audio log under the floorboards, and it ends with him screaming. Closing on our new home was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. After 5 years saving and scraping, Laura and I finally got the keys to the 1928 two-door on Elmwood Avenue. The real estate agent bragged about all original charm, the high ceilings, the leaded glass windows, and most exciting to me, the chance to gut and modernise while preserving character. 2 weeks later, we ripped our carpets, stripped wallpaper, and pulled up floorboards in the upstairs bedrooms. Beneath 4 layers of oak planks lay a hidden hatch, a square of warped pine, screwed tight and painted over. I pried it open half-jokingly and found an old field recorder, dusty, battered, with a leather strap and metal tag. Lot 32 survey, field log 004. Laura gasped. That must have belonged to the surveyor who mapped this block. I nodded, but felt a chill. My heartbeat thumped as I pressed play on the recorder's single reel. The first 3 minutes were mundane. A man's voice, calm, clipped. May 12, 1974. Began survey of lot 32. Ground soft. Watch your footing. Check continuity of water main along eastern foundation. He rattled off measurements, angles, distances, like a metronome. I recognised the cadence, professional, unconcerned. Then, at 4:17 into the tape, the tone shifted. Tap the pipe junction. Yep, that's secure. A metallic knock. Then, huh? Hear that? He paused, shuffling. The knock came again. Dollar. Deeper, as though inside wood. Knock, knock. He whispered. That's not in my notes. My spine stiffened. The knock was clearly inside the house's wooden joists. I reclined against the removed floorboard, spinning the recorder. The surveyor sighed. Fine, let's follow the crawl space. He panned the mic as he climbed the narrow hatch, wood squeaking, dust puffing. I heard his boot tread, creak, then static, a soft clink, like metal hitting stone. Got it. Junction box looks intact. He tapped the junction. A distant thump answered back, low and deliberate. He froze. You hear that? He whispered. The mic's ambient hiss rose. It's coming from the crawl. Below. The recorder wobbled with his heavy breathing. I paused the recorder, heart snared. I glanced around the open room. No crawl space in our plans, only a deep, unfinished basement beneath the entire footprint. No hatch in the first floor living room, no secret cellar. The only hidden access was this tiny attic-like crawl above the second floor. I rose, closing the hatch gently, resolving to rationalise it later. But terror seeped in. What had he heard, and what happened next? I pressed play again. The surveyor's clear voice resumed. Alright, I'm returning to the main hall. Must have been my radio. He clambered back, and you could hear the floorboard settle, then rattle. He froze mid-sentence. That's not my radio. Crunch. Wood splintering. What the? Then click. The tape wobbled. A gasp. Footsteps behind the hatch. Rapid, metallic clanging, like chains on pipes. He whispered, Jesus God. A muffled scream, ragged, desperate, erupted. Then the tape cut to static, loud and buzzing. After 10 seconds, a final, horrifying cry. No! Then dead silence. I sat clutching the recorder, pale in the dim unity light leaking through the hatch. The tape hissed. No background noise. My pulse thumped. A floorboard creaked behind me. Mine or someone else's. I dashed out to the living room, heart rattling. I bolted the door, turned every light on. The wood floors gleamed, no sign of disturbance except that hatch I'd closed. For 3 nights, I replayed the tape. Each time, I heard new details. A sob, a faint scrape against concrete, a final click, like a latch snapping shut. I pored over local archives. Lot 32 was sold in 1974 to a small surveying company, Preston and Dale. That field recorder belonged to Samuel Preston, who disappeared October 3rd, 1974, just 6 months after the survey. His truck was found idling at a quarry, keys still in the ignition. Inside, the recorder lay on the passenger seat, no notes in its log. Local newspapers mentioned Preston's fatal accident, but no body was discovered. The police report was brief: presumed drowned, no foul play suspected. I sat back. A drowning? But the recorder's screams sounded more violent, more butchered than submerged. I braced myself for the full confrontation. In my office, I set speakers, dimmed lights, and pressed play. Minutes 0 to 5, survey instructions. Then 5 to 10, the first thump and whisper. Minute 10 to 15, scrapes and ranting. 15 to 20, Preston's final scream. 20 to 21, 10 seconds of static. And 21 to 22, Preston's last word, marred and strangled. Help! Then the tape cut out. A sharp beep, not from the recorder, but from my phone. A motion alert. I froze. We lived on a dead-end street. Motion alerts were disabled. I checked anyway. A single white car parked outside. License plate unreadable. I raced outside in slippers, down the driveway. Found no car. But on my doormat lay the battered field recorder, tape still spinning inside. In horror, I picked it up. The recorder's counter flicked 22:37 and counting. The tape was playing on its own. I dropped it, skipped back to the start. May the 12th, 1974. I backed away. The recorder clicked through the survey instructions again, this time overlaid with unmistakable sound of my own footsteps approaching from upstairs, and the faint, ragged sound of someone whispering, "It's my turn now." I sprinted inside, the tape still whirring outside, beckoning. I left the recorder on the porch, called the police. They found no recordings on my house network, no second recorder, no phone in service radius. I moved my office equipment out that week, but each night at 22:37, I awake to the faint hum of a tape, like someone rewinding. My dreams fill with a tinny echo. Check the pipe, check the crew, no, help. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. And sometimes, at exactly 10:37 PM, I still hear footsteps and a voice whispering, "Now it's my turn." If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. We tore down the living room wall and found a fully furnished 1950s baby room. When my wife, Sam, and I bought our fixer-upper on Maple Drive, the listing boasted original hardwood, abundant storage, room to grow. We dreamed of family dinners in the formal dining room, movie nights in the living room, and one day, a baby's nursery just off the master suite. 6 months into renovations, we were gutting the living room to open the floor plan. That's when our sledgehammer hit, thud, against a surface far deeper than mere plaster. Behind it, a brick wall, 4 feet thick, painted over to look like the rest of the room. We pried a corner loose and stepped into another world. The crew paused. The wall yielded in a perfect rectangle, tucked inside a fully furnished nursery, as if frozen in time. The air smelled of aged wood paper and mothballs, A tiny crib with 4 iron spindles stood against the far wall. Peeling wallpaper bore pastel teddy bears. A chipped wooden dresser sat beneath a small window. Dusty toys scattered around. A porcelain doll, a wooden pool toy, a faded storybook. I flicked on my phone's light. "Sam, come look at this." She climbed through the gap, gasped, then stepped back quickly, her face ashen. "This wasn't on any floor plans," she whispered. "We lived in this house for 6 months and never suspected a room existed beyond the wall. It had no door, only a sliding hatch concealed behind bookshelves in an adjacent study, now removed." That evening, we shifted through the nursery's contents. On the dresser, beneath a layer of dust, lay a small leather-bound diary. A child's scrawl on cover, "Mary's room." Inside, dated September the 3rd, 1954. "I like Teddy. He doesn't talk back. Mother said he's my best friend. Father visits only at night. He whispers. Sometimes he cries." Flip to the last entry, September the 21st, 1954. "He's coming for me, Mary." The pages after were blank, some torn out. A chill pressed on my chest. Who was Mary? What happened to her? The next day, we headed to the county archives. Microfinch revealed a birth record. Mary Henderson, born May 1952, lived at this address until September the 22nd, 1954, when the Henderson family moved, listed as "moved away," with no forwarding address. No obituary, no newspaper mention of tragedy, nothing on Mary's fate. Neighbours abutting our property owned their lot since the 70s and recalled a Henderson family who just disappeared one day. A vague rumour said Mary's father was abusive, that the mother left him and took the children, but no proof. We exchanged uneasy glances. The room felt less like a time capsule and more like a tomb. That night, sleep evaded me. Around 1:37 a.m, I heard faint sobbing, like a child crying. It echoed through the studs of the demolished wall. I jolted upright, heart thudding. Sam lay beside me, breathing softly. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. She stiffened. "I thought it was the HVAC, but there was no duct in the wall." The cry came again, a single, quivering sob, followed by the tinny chime of music box notes. "Rock-a-bye baby." I grabbed my phone and recorded audio. The lullaby melody paused mid-line, replaced by a low whisper. "Mary." My skin crawled. The following night, we boarded up the nursery access. We unhung new insulation, plaster, and a fresh drywall. We planned to forget the room existed. After all, it was clearly a bad memory, better off sealed. At 12:05 a.m, a slow creak, a hollow thud, as though someone sat in that tiny crib. Then another creak, thud. The sliding hatch in the study rattled as if opening. We heard the wood scrape, inch by inch. Shh. The hatch clicked open. Then, unmistakable, a soft pat, pat, pat of tiny feet crossing the study floor. They padded towards the master bedroom doorway. I pressed my back against the mattress. Breath tapped in my lungs. At 12:08 a.m, a child's laughter, echoing that filled the room. Then Mary's voice, frail and distant. "Will you play with me?" The laughter stopped. Silence pressed in. The next morning, Sam found a tiny shoe on our pillow, a delicate white Mary Jane, about Mary's doll size. No other shoes, no footprints in the dust, no hatch displaced. The walls were solid, the drywall unmarked. We brought the shoe to the police station. They checked missing children's records. No match. The shoe's age and style placed it squarely in the early 1950s. We donated it to the archives, but they returned it. Property of the Henderson estate. They said, "No Hendersons remain in town." That night, I placed that little shoe on my dresser. Safe, I thought. At 1:13 a.m, I woke to the crib's mobile, swiveling in the nursery's light, casting teddy bear shadows across the ceiling where no room stood. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it, but sometimes, when everything's quiet, I swear I hear Mary whispering. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. Every night at 1:13 a.m, I hear the attic door creak, then the chairs start to rock. When we toured the new build on Sycamore Lane, the developer proudly pointed out the attic hatch in the upstairs hallway. "Just storage," he assured us, "perfect for holiday boxes and extra linens." 6 months later, my parents, away for the weekend, left my sister, Claire, alone in the spacious 4-bedroom home. It was Claire's first time babysitting on her own. At 8 p.m, she bathed our 10-year-old nephew, tucked him into bed, and settled on the couch to watch a movie. The house felt empty without adult voices. Claire dozed off before midnight, the TV's glow warm in the living room. At exactly 1:13 a.m, she awoke to a small creak from above, an unmistakable groan of the attic hatch swinging on its hinges. Claire bolted upright, heart hammering. The living room lay in semi-darkness, TV credits rolling. She clicked the remote, screen black. She flipped the lamp on. Silence, except for her own ragged breath. Creak, creak. The attic hatch above the hallway groaned open again. Claire's hand clenched the lamp base. No thought of calling Mum. Her phone was dead. She crept from the crouch into the hallway. The hatch lay slightly ajar. No latch, no chain. A chill breeze drifted down the stairs. She reached up and shook the hatch. It didn't move. Shrugging, she closed it tightly and returned to the couch. "Stop being silly," she told herself. Claire sat in the living room with a coffee and a book. She texted Mum, "Everything's fine." Still, she kept the front door locked and the TV on. At 1:13 a.m, the same creak, attic hatch, then, below it, a slow, rhythmic squeak, squeak, squeak. Claire froze. The sound came from the attic directly above the living room ceiling. It was a rocking chair, moving back and forth with deliberate force. She dropped her coffee mug, shattering porcelain. The rocking paused. Silence. Then squeak. The rocking resumed, faster, more insistent. Claire's heart thundered. She grabbed her phone, flicked on torch mode, and tiptoed to the staircase. At the top of the stairs, she peered up. The hatch was still flush. No gap, no movement. The sound shifted, closer, over her head, then above the hallway. She fled downstairs, yanking the hatch open. Inside, nothing but dusty insulation. No chair, no footprints, no swing arm. She slammed the hatch shut and taped it with duct tape. The rocking stopped. Claire couldn't sleep. She lit every lamp, tested the security cameras, viewing only empty rooms, and kept the kitchen lights on. She braced herself, waiting. At 1:13 a.m, it began. Creak, squeak. But this time, the sound shifted downstairs, like someone carried the rocking chair to the first floor. She grabbed the living room phone and quietly dialed 911. "If anyone breaks in," she typed to the dispatcher. Voice-to-text on her flip phone wasn't perfect. The rocker's metallic squeal trailed through the ceiling into the room. The dispatcher's lights vanished from the HUD. Call dropped. Claire crept to the base of the stairs. She aimed her phone's flashlight up. Nothing on the landing. Nothing in the hallway. Yet the rocking persisted, now plainly from the living room. Nothing on the landing. Nothing in the hallway. Yet the rocking persisted, now plainly from the living room. Claire opened the front door. No one there. Porch empty. She slammed the door, locked it, shoved furniture against it. The living room's hardwood floors sank under each swing. Claire screamed and ran to the kitchen, hiding in the pantry, phone trembling in her hand. At dawn, Claire dragged me from my sleep, bleary. I followed her to the living room. A single muddy footprint on the white rug, size US men's 10. Sawdust on the floor as if old antique insulation had been disturbed, and duct tape still on the hatch, pulled tight. We pried open the hatch, found the attic bare, save for a single item. A well-withered oak rocking chair leg sawed off at the seat level. No chair back, no seat, just one carved leg, lying like a claw. Late that afternoon, Mum called to confirm plans for the weekend. We told her no more babysitting. She arrived that evening, packed Claire's things and agreed we'll hire a sitter next time. At 1:13 AM, Mum slept in the guest room. Claire and I stayed by the living room phone. The house was silent. Then the doorbell. One ring. Two rings. From the porch camera on my phone, we saw a silhouette rocking a chair back and forth on the stoop. An oak rocking chair, fully intact, occupied by no one visible. Claire stumbled outside, phone held high. The porch light flickered on. The rocking chair vanished. No step, no silhouette, just empty concrete. The rocking never stopped. We never sat in that living room again. We sold the house 6 months later. The buyer wrote in the comments, "Charming fixer-upper with attic storage." On moving day, a single oak rocking chair leg remained wedged behind the sofa, solidly attached as if it had always been part of the frame. We tried to pry it open, couldn't. I keep it on my mantle now, a souvenir of nights I'll never forget. And at 1:13 AM, whenever the clocks shift, I sometimes swear I hear a distant creak, squeak, the attic lullaby, calling me back to a chair that rocks itself. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it, but who or what still rocks those attic boards at precisely 1:13 every night?